Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
You know it's trade deadline season when you get your first official random player on a random team linked to the Red Wings rumor. And then you have to ask yourself, does this make sense? Would this be something that team would do? Would this be something that the Red Wings would do? And most importantly, even if it clears all those checks, how on Gord's green earth would they get that information from Steve Yzerman?
Because the leaks never come from
Detroit.
Yeah,
it's always from a different node. It's not impossible to get Detroit-related information, but definitely it's
just not from Detroit.
Yeah. The dam was closed. The dam of leaks and information coming out of Detroit was closed around April of 2019. Don't know what happened then. All right, it's the big game, the Superb Bowl, the Superb Owl. Yeah, everyone I always in my head I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to say it, but then I'm like, I don't know, we're not radio. This isn't a commercial. We can say Super Bowl.
I think everybody knows what it is.
The Super Bowl. I actually am a little annoyed with myself. I meant to wear my Matt Stafford jersey only because the discourse around Matt Stafford has been so weird. It's like, I think it's okay to root for a guy who you liked, who was on your team for a long time. And I think it's okay to say, I don't care about that guy because he's not on the team anymore. I think it's weird to hate on people for liking him. And I think it's weird for Lions fans to count this as a Lions success, which it is not at all. But anyways, it'll be a good game. Who do you have?
Oh, yes, of course. Who do I have?
Yeah.
As I am the football insider, it is well known that I know more about football than both of you combined.
That's absolutely true.
Yes. I just hope everybody has fun, Just hope for a good halftime show. Hope my jalapeno popper dip turns out really nice.
Did you bring some?
Not for you.
I offered you a pretzel in my kitchen.
That was not a deal.
I can get a pretzel.
You were going to get offered one, but now I'm not going to give you one.
I don't know. As someone who's watched 2 football games this year, I think I'm inclined to say that the Rams are the better team.
Okay.
But there's something about Joe Burrow just being the biggest...
Joe Shiesty?
Yeah, just an absolute boss.
Yeah.
No, I think the Rams are better, right?
Yeah, well, I think so.
They're the betting favorites.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with the Rams.
Before we get into any deeper of that incredibly detailed analytical NFL talk, let's do what this podcast was intended for, talking about the Detroit Red Wings, NHL hockey, and everything else to do in the world of puck, sticks, and skates. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
Apparently, I'm the only one around here who remembers the significance of today. I'm Brad Crisco.
I was waiting to bring it up.
We had a 5-minute intro. You missed the window, champ.
Is it someone's birthday?
Yeah,
God.
kind of.
Damn it, Evan.
What day is it? February
13th?
13th?
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm Evan.
And today marks the 7-year anniversary.
Oh, that's not a birthday.
Kind of.
When 3 guys love each other a lot.
Oh, and they sit in a basement and start a podcast. It's the 7-year anniversary of the Winged Wheel Podcast. I'm a little annoyed that it came on Super Bowl Sunday this time because I would have done we would have done a whole thing on Twitter today, but we'll put it out tomorrow. But yeah, it's been 7 years of this. We are getting closer and closer to that decade mark, and I'm just not.
It feels long and short all at the same time.
It does. That's exactly. I can't remember a time when we weren't doing this, but it still feels brand new.
Yeah.
Ryan was in college when this started, and now he's a broken old man like the rest of us.
That's true. You were in your 20s when we started.
Kind of.
In my head, you're still in your late 20s to me, like forever. And that's partly because you have a baby face and you don't age, and I'm very angry about that. But it's just it's this whole thing feels frozen in time. Yeah. In future, what we should do things like, ask listeners to pull up favorite moments and things like that if we were together, people. And
speaking of bad takes, I don't know how this came up. Something on the hockey subreddit, and someone linked the hockey gifs Moritz Seider video.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we were in that way too much.
Well, yeah, we were.
Oh.
I like the Lucas Raymond one too, though. The fact that the Lucas Raymond one exists makes me feel,
Yeah.
hey, look,
We were very, what the hell just happened with Seider? We were very, holy hell, it actually happened with Raymond. And we were very lukewarm on Edvinsson.
Edvinsson was, I think with Edvinsson, we had learned a lot from Seider. So there was a lot of learning to not like overreact to it. And Evan called it, first of all. Evan did say it, like, he was.
I don't think we ever disagreed that Edvinsson didn't fit the Red Wings bill, like what they look for.
Mm-hmm.
We just weren't sure with the risks.
And another thing was McTavish was off the board at that point too. Anyhow,
And Johnson.
So 7 years. I think it's a step up that we even remembered at this time. We usually just skate past it. But 7 years of all of your support and the making the show into what it is. And I wish we had the words to thank you enough for that. But instead of giving you a whole big speech, I'll just say we have some pretty exciting announcements coming up in the coming days and weeks. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for giving us everything that we've been able to do on the Winged Wheel podcast over these past 7 years. It comes from you, the listeners and the viewers. And here's to 7 more, provided that we don't age out of this and die by then.
To the day one listeners, how does it feel? Just to know you wasted 7 years of your life on us.
Achy. Very achy. On this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast, rather than just talk about ourselves the whole time, we'll be talking about the Red Wings' second game against the Philadelphia Flyers. Some takeaways from that. Some returning heroes and more at Seider. The Guelph connection. Troy Stecher has returned to the lineup. Filip Zadina continued to do well on that first line. We will be talking a little bit more about something that kind of got stuck at the end of last episode, but it's a bigger discussion, I think, in Jakub Vrana and what happens to the lineup when he returns. And then, believe it or not, I'm going to say the P word again. Playoffs. Because people have been paying attention to it.
Not close enough, apparently.
So
Playoffs for who?
Yeah.
Everyone. Whoever has a good time, you make the playoffs.
Oh, we had a great time this week, so I like our odds.
That's right. And then some rumors attached to Detroit, some NHL news, and whatever else comes up before overtime. Before I do that, Wings Money on the Board. Go to wingedwheelpodcast.com/blog, click the Wings Money on the Board post, and I want you to read that and find out more about what Wings Money on the Board is and how it supports the Jamie Daniels Foundation, an organization that we're very, very proud to partner with and support. Started by Ken Daniels, Red Wings lead announcer, and Lisa Daniels-Goldman. The Wings Money on the Board campaign has raised more than $10,000 for them so far this season, and we have some exciting stuff coming up to bring that total even higher. So thank you all for your support, and check it out if you want to learn more. The Red Wings against Philadelphia, this time at home, second game. And man, Philly is still bad, and the Red Wings still did what they needed to do that game. I wouldn't say it was as dominant. It was a little bit of a sleepy game to start, right?
I wouldn't even say the Red Wings were the better team for that game, mostly. But as we've beat to death this year, when you have legitimate top-end talent, you can have nights off and still win the game because the good players do cool shit and it, helps the team.
Yeah, it was a noon start. And noon starts always feel like, even I think Seider in his postgame admitted, like, noon starts just feel slow. They looked a step behind and they looked a little like mucky and disorganized. And it wasn't really till they came up for the second that kind of alleviated a little bit. But the game did go Detroit's way. It ended up being a 4-2 win over the Flyers. So the second straight win in regulation. Opened up in the first with a goal from none other than the Guelph connection. So Bertuzzi and Fabbri hooking up for that great play. Suter obviously in on the assist as well. But that line right now, in terms of performance and output, has to be one of the best lines in hockey.
They're good. They're really good. They're the best. They could be one of the best second lines in hockey.
Okay,
I'll give you that.
You don't think that the way that they're performing and the impact that they have on the ice over in 2022 so far?
If we're looking at like a 4 or 5 game sample size, yeah, they're on a heater that rivals most lines in the league, but
I'm not saying on pure talent. Like, I'm not going to take.
Screw you, McDavid and Draisaitl. You guys are bums now.
Oh, I mean, depending on who you ask.
Nathan McKinnon can probably still not breathe out of his nose, so he's not effective. He doesn't count.
Well, he has a facial fracture. Does it feel like that guy just gets destroyed all the time?
Well, he runs around the ice at 1 billion miles an hour. So if literally anything hits him, it's going to be devastating.
That's true. He's like a piece of shrapnel in orbit.
Yeah, honestly.
I want you to look at a sample size that is most beneficial to my argument. That's the specific sample size I'm looking at. There you go.
One shift.
Yeah. But no, seriously, in all honesty, hyperbole aside, they've been so good where you're like, do not separate them. Work around it. Because Larkin, Raymond, and X can be Zadina, X can be Nemesnikov, X can be Vrana when he comes back, whoever. That is like Larkin and Raymond is good enough to carry the rest of that line. Those three together maximizes that second line where it's like, hey, if you get a version of the Detroit Red Wings and that's your second line and they're competing for playoffs, that's still good enough. Like that is still a very, very good second line as they're playing right now.
Yeah, it depends entirely on that first line because this has been the problem for years where the Red Wings every once in a while will find that connection on the top line that works. Like, you know, when it was Bertuzzi, Larkin, Mantha, and then this year Larkin, Raymond, and literally anybody. And you get a very, very effective top line. But God, I don't even remember the last time the Red Wings had an effective second line for longer than like a period. It's been years upon years upon years. So the fact that the Guelph connection is doing this and the top line, though not on the heater they were with Bertuzzi, is still producing at the rate of a top line, that's a really big development for the Red Wings. Mm-hmm. Like that's huge because one, from a simplistic view, Fabbri, Bertuzzi, and Suter are all under contract for next year. Mm-hmm. So this could be more than just a Band-Aid solution. Larkin and Raymond are not going anywhere. And the Zadina experiment there has looked good. So that could continue for a while. And it really does, we're going to talk about it later, but it really does open up the possibility for the Red Wings actually deploying 3 scoring lines for, well, probably non-ironically, the first time in the history of this podcast.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. Who's that? Who's the mystery third line in this equation?
Well, there's a bunch of ways you can break it down, but essentially it boils down to, hey, if this top 6 is really working, you can just put Vrana on the third line and then put him with like Nemesnikov or anybody halfway decent. And all of a sudden that line probably could start popping a few because right now the Red Wings third line on at least at forward is probably their biggest problem the last, 5 or 6 games. So at least since Zadina got pulled off of it, which I didn't even realize is probably an argument in our favor for, the whole Zadina isn't bad thing. But yeah, it really does open up a lot of possibilities. Like not necessarily that it has to be constructed in a certain way, but
yeah,
it really opens it up.
I think there's 2 things here. One, it's like our slow realization, like we're hanging on to line combinations right now. And I just did it 2 seconds ago, like never break up the second line, but we're hanging on to line combinations that work for like with dear life because the talent has been so sparing that if you were ever able to find a configuration that was generating some kind of output for a little while, you're like, don't move. Everyone stay exactly where you are. Keep doing exactly that. But this is the result of an infusion of more talent into the team. Raymond and Seider open up quite a bit. Larkin and Bertuzzi having career years open up quite a bit, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a lot more there. And going back to what you were saying about the second line, Brad, for the first time in a long, long time, I see them step out onto the ice and I say, hey, that's the Red Wings second line. I'm expecting them to do something. And before it was just essentially waiting for the Larkin line to roll, to step on the ice. That's it. Not that you would never see like a goal from a Fabbri line or a third line or whatever. No, but it was more of just a bonus if you did see it. So yeah, that line has been phenomenal. Next goal was probably it was the most exciting one until Mo Seider did something about that later. But it was a kind of a snapshot of exactly what people who are calling for Zadina to get a chance in the top line for. It was Larkin gained the zone. He took care of the zone entry, came in with speed, got the puck poked away from him or something, and Zadina was just in the right place with space, picked it up, cut to the middle, and just fired it with the most satisfying Philip Zadina rip. And it was just a collective exhale when he put that home. It wasn't his first goal in the last little while, but it was his first real just wired that thing.
It was the first time I fist pumped a goal on the couch in a long time.
Punch the table. You're right. That's right.
That's right. Who do you think you are? But,
and it's like one goal.
It's one goal. But hey, 4 points in his last 6 games now, and only half those games have come on the top line.
It was same thing as last game. Like we talked about this last game. Was it an absolutely perfect game? Was Filip Zadina the best player out there out of both teams? No, I don't think that's the case. But you could see how much more comfortable he was playing. You could see him kind of let the play come to him, not force things. He was just kind of flowing with the line. He was finding himself with space. He didn't need to do too much because his line mates are very, very capable. And that's what allows him to be in the position as like the trailer on a Larkin break to pick up the puck and put it home. And if that's what you need to do for a guy like Filip Zadina to unlock what he can do for the team, then, I mean, credit to the coaching staff for doing it because it's a 2-game sample size. We'll see what happens, but it's working so far.
I actually thought he played better on Wednesday than he did on Saturday, but he walked away from Wednesday with no points and he had the goal on Saturday. So the benefit of him being on the top line, well, there's lots of benefits, but one of the benefits is now he will have the opportunity to score without generating anything for himself, which he was not getting this season at all. He was doing a good job of generating chances for himself, but there was not a lot that was just coming to him. So playing with Larkin and Raymond, he's going to get more than a few of those. Even if Larkin didn't mean to get Zadina that puck, it was a 2-on-2 and Larkin was coming with speed. Zadina's not dumb. He knows something's probably going to happen and to be ready. And yeah, it worked out for him. So, and hockey's a game of odds. And we've been joking that eventually once Zadina regresses to the mean, his production's going to go up. And you know, what is regressing to the mean in hockey? It means you start scoring some goals that you probably shouldn't, because there was a lot of ones that should have ended up in the net that didn't. And that's how, you know, in general, luck works. So Zadina did a good job of getting to the middle and waiting for the traffic to score, but he did nothing to get that scoring chance. The puck just came to him and he was just smartly trailing Larkin on the play. Not really trailing, but you know what I mean? And it worked out. Like every once in a while, it's good to see that. So hopefully this is what Zadina regressing to the mean looks like, and he gets a whole bunch of freebies to make up for all the ones that he should have had earlier in the year.
He doesn't really care how the points come.
No.
And you know what? The game, the prior game where I agree, he probably played better if you break it down shift by shift. That had to have been impactful for him too. And, you know, he heard it from Larkin, and Larkin said he talked to him about it as well. Jeff Blashill said it publicly. We mentioned before, like, that was a really good game, and that has to mean a lot to him. But just the satisfaction from being able to rip one home.
Oh,
yeah. For a shooter to not score with his like patented shot, that's got to be in his head. So for him to be able to dig that out is good. Thomas Greiss was on one that game. Like he had a scorpion save.
Yeah, honestly, weird. Didn't see that one and all posted on a lot of the national social medias and channels.
It was like that sequence was one of the the saves of the year. Like pad save, like nice pad save first, and then kicked his leg up. Like that's going to should be on the montages. So, and then you called it out. It's like Greiss is having this unreal game and is just good for one stinker still.
Yeah, every game. He's the Brendan Smith of goaltenders. No matter how well he plays, there's always going to be the one bad one.
You cut too deep on that one. I feel like that's sometimes Red Wings goalies. Like even if Ned's having a really good night, like sometimes one sneaks through. But Greiss is very Howard-esque, like late Jimmy Howard years with that one.
Like Ned will let some in where you're like, he might have had that one. He had a shot at that one. Greiss's bad ones are like, I could have stopped that.
Yeah. But, I mean, he was solid in the win. And like you said, Detroit at this point and for that game didn't look that much more dominant over Philly as they did in the game prior. So he made a big difference in the win. The game winner ended up, though, being Mort Seider stepping in from the point with a laser with the game winner.
Even before that, that was 90 seconds of the best that power play has looked this year.
Oh, my God.
Philly couldn't do anything with that top line on the ice, top unit on the ice. They were moving the puck around, moving their feet, opening up shooting lanes, getting chances, recovering the puck, moving it more, and it all accumulated in 2 chances for Seider, the second which he ended up ripping home with maybe the nicest snapshot anybody on the Red Wings has let go this year. And yeah, it ended up being the game-winning goal, so just a little important.
Yeah, but it wasn't cool.
Oh, it was cool.
He's getting cooler.
If the goal wasn't cool enough, the celly started making its rounds.
Did he put a blindfold on? And did the Red Wings non-existent mascot throw dodgeballs at whoever was in net last night?
He actually had his skates on his hands for the whole game. You just didn't notice.
Wow.
Yeah. He did the Tomas Tatar, are you not entertained? It's funny because Seider is a super humble guy. And you can tell anytime he's getting a ton of attention, like he redirects it away to his teammates. Like in pressers and stuff, like he's very reserved. He's very much the opposite of like a loud, proud. And I have no problem with those players who are, but Seider very much is like, I don't want everyone to think that I think like I'm a god. But I do like that we got the arms out, are you not entertained, Sally first. Man, credit to the Red Wings photographers this year though. Like the amount I'm barely ever kidding when I say I look at a picture and I'm like, I need that signed and I need it framed for the studio.
That's the one though.
So far, yeah.
That one's the one.
It looks so good.
Yeah, I don't know if that ever does end up becoming like an autograph print that you can buy.
Yeah.
Blank check, whatever it takes. I'm hanging that thing above my bed.
We should just make sweaters and just get it printed.
Yeah. Brad's going to be selling a car for that one.
Yeah.
Opening that checkbook.
I would, but my cars aren't worth anything.
Oh, well, sorry, buddy. It's like Evan's going to get over his bed and that's it.
Yep.
Troy Stecher. I mean, it happened very fast. He got activated, and I was like, oh, I wonder how long until we see Troy Stecher at game speed and slotting into the lineup. And the answer was that night. I'm sure Philip Hronek being out plays into that because obviously you need someone on the right side. Hronek's out on COVID protocol, but Stecher slotted in. Not really much to say for the game, but it's his first game back in a trillion years. So
did not notice him at all, so I'll take it as a win.
He was paired with Stahl. Stahl has
noticed Stahl a lot.
I got 3 different texts from people saying Stahl has to stop doing that.
The fact that I don't immediately know what it is you're referring to sums up Mark Stahl perfectly.
I didn't know what they were referring to in the moment because I'm like, there's 3 different things that happened on the ice. 1 was like neutral and 2 were like, oh my God, Mark.
I'll never forget the stat card from the game on Wednesday where it's like, here, it's basically a line down the middle, and the further your bar goes to the right means here's all the good impacts you're having, and the further it goes to the left, it's all the bad impacts you're having. Seider was the number 1 defenseman on the Red Wings in terms of positive impacts. Mark Stahl was 2. And in terms of negative impacts, Mark Stahl was 1.
That double-edged sword, baby.
Like, there was a couple Red Wings who the bar barely moved off the line in either direction, and Mark Stahl's like maxed out going in both directions.
He's true chaotic neutral. It's funny because there's 3 notable goals. Obviously, the Guelph connection had a fantastic goal, just like great chemistry and synergy together, really. Philip Zadina getting his was huge. Moritz Seider's only flaw is that he doesn't shoot more, in my mind, and that was displayed.
There was definitely Blashill, one of the Red Wings assistant coaches, also knows Seider doesn't shoot enough. There's a 0% chance that none of them didn't walk up to him and go, "Do you see?"
Moritz, right there.
Do you see?
And there was an empty netter from Michael Rasmussen, and I was like, oh, it's an empty netter. Then Keith Yandel pulls the pond hockey with your buddies play where you're not diving on the ice because you know it's like you're
too far away.
Yeah. Sometimes if you have enough time, it's the stick and then the gloves. You throw both gloves, but this time it was just Yandel. Just like almost like shuffleboarded. Like he just guided his stick forward. And then all the slow-mo shots of Yandel's stick just like rattling off the ice, like wobbling. Arjun actually said the wobble's killing me. And I was almost in stitches watching it over. It just like flies across the ice. And then Rasmussen still put the puck in. But to see it in an NHL game, everyone was like, Keith, what the hell?
Idiotic? Yes. Entertainment value? High.
Through the roof.
Absolutely recommended move. But like the only dumb thing about it is Keith, this is why you do your pre-scouts and you didn't look into Michael Rasmussen's history with empty nets. You should have let him take his chances just in case.
You should have done it. So for those who don't know, something like that where the net is empty, that's an automatic goal. So even if Rasmussen had fallen, head over heels and the puck went sideways or backwards into his own net somehow, 200 feet down the ice, it still would have been an automatic goal for the Red Wings. And on the broadcast, they initially said that the assists to Larkin and Gagne were removed because it was just like an awarded goal, but they seem to have been re-awarded. So, which is good.
I don't know the rule, but all I can assume is, because Rasmussen never lost control of the puck, the delayed penalties never blown.
Yeah.
The play just finished.
I'm sure the referees or whoever, the off the ice judges looked at the rule book and went, it's kind of weird one. Just give it to him.
Yeah. It helped. Larkin needed it to be propelled into a tie for 15th in league scoring.
3 assists. What is that? 24 goals, 25 assists, 49 points this season for Dylan Larkin. Man.
It's top 10 in scoring.
3 primary assists.
Sorry. Oh, I thought you meant overall for the whole season. I'm like, that cannot be true. 3 primary assists today, for that game.
Yep. And then propelled him to 15th in league scoring.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, he's tied with Brad Marchand and Mika Zibanejad for 15th, 49 points. Biggest impact on the ice, if you look at game impacts, and he didn't even have a goal. So overall, good game for the Red Wings. Like you said before the game, Brad, it was a bad team. They should beat them. You saw the things that you wanted to see. Moritz Seider continued to look fantastic.
Lucas Raymond got another point.
Dylan Larkin, 3 primary assists. The power play was moving around and doing things. They got a good support game from Thomas Greiss, and it was overall, if they lost that game in
they still allowed 34 shots against. From a bad team, but
their defense is bad. Detroit's defense is bottom of the league bad.
Yeah,
but
imagine, how did we survive this defense before Mo Seider? How did we do it?
Tired eyes. We were very, very tired all the time.
Prospect profile.
Yeah, honestly.
I feel like we were unfairly harsh the last couple of years on the Red Wings defense, and now seeing what Mo Seider can do,
we weren't hard enough.
No,
we should have.
No, but if we went harder, we would have died of some kind of stress related ailment.
Yeah, 1,000%.
We just can't twice a week to come out and say it's so bad.
It would have just been every episode would have been 30 minutes complaining how this team doesn't score and 45 minutes of inaudible screaming.
All of us came into this podcast 7 years ago with some degree of pessimism or whatever we were, optimist or pessimist. And we've just watching this team through the rebuild has forced us all to flip flop between the two 18 different times. I don't even know what my own personality is anymore, really.
It's they can't be this bad. It's going to get better. And then it gets worse. It can't be as bad. It's going to get better.
And then it gets
worse. Well, at least we can maybe win a couple draft lotteries out of this. Oh. Well, maybe we'll pick we'll get lucky and get the best players out of some of these drafts, even though we're not picking first. Oh.
Yeah, my notes most weeks at this point are don't talk about Moritz Seider and the Norris Trophy so much. You sound like a crazy person. Very quickly here, I want to talk about the Red Wings' upcoming schedule. So before next episode,
Can we not? I looked at it this morning.
Yeah, before next episode, there's just the Monday night game, 8 p.m. Eastern in Minnesota. I love that. Minnesota
against one of the top teams in the league in Minnesota.
So that's what will happen before next episode. But then they got the Rangers,
one of the top teams in the league,
and then they got the Avalanche,
one of the top teams in the league,
and then they have Toronto,
one of the top teams in the league,
Carolina,
one of the top teams in the league,
Friday, Saturday back to back, Tampa Bay and Florida.
Oh my God.
Two of the top teams in the league,
Arizona on Tuesday, March 8th.
Hell yeah, there's our win.
And then
that'll be the loss.
Minnesota again on the 10th.
One of the top teams in the league. Okay, this is going to be a.
So I want to feed this into a very we've had the playoffs discussion when the Red Wings were at the peak of output, end of November, beginning of December, where they were hovering in and around a playoff spot. Currently, Boston is going through some stuff. We'll put it like that. They've had a lot on their plate. Tuukka Rask's return to play has fallen through, and he's chosen to retire. Brad Marchand suspended. He's appealing. Whatever. They got a lot going on for them. They have 3 games in hand on Detroit, and they're 7 points ahead. So that could turn into 9, 11, 13-point advantage. I don't view this as something that, I'd even be close to putting money on. I don't think people who are hoping for it are insane, though. Like, if a team in the East is primed to collapse and have a really hard time, I mean, Boston has a lot of the factors in play there. But it would have to be a pretty significant collapse, and it's kind of coming at the wrong time for Detroit, right? Like, that upcoming schedule is extremely tough. So,
hardest second half schedule of any team in the league.
I don't want to sit here and tell people, someone was like, you guys are really negative about the Red Wings in the playoffs. And it's like, man, it's not like we don't want the Red Wings to make the playoffs. It's just that in all reality, you're going to have to see them get back to a level of play that they only really had at the beginning of the season. I mean, Vrana coming back could change things, but that also depends on who goes out at the trade deadline on March 21st. I know it's more than a month away now, but
7 points, and Boston has 3 games in hand. I'll say it. They don't have a chance.
How many more times do they play Boston?
I don't know. I'll look.
Every once in a while, there's a team that goes on a run like Ottawa did with the Hamburglar, where they rattled off 16 out of 17 wins, or the Cardinals basically don't lose a game for the entire month of September to make the playoffs. Like, we all remember that those stories happen. They can and do happen. But the reason we all remember them is because they happen so infrequently. So my bar for the Red Wings right now to make the playoffs, if you rounded it to the nearest whole number, would be 0. So if they even get close to it, I'm going to view that as a massive success. And like, they'll have one of the most fun runs of hockey we'll have seen in recent memory. But I've killed my expectations just because, statistically speaking, and odds, whatever you want to go by, rounding to the closest whole number is basically 0. Like, it's not happening.
Pretty good math terminology going on here, right?
So it sucks. And like, as much as we want to sit here and say we can't, but Ryan's right. Like, Boston's the type of team that frequently rattles off 3-game win streaks. So they're 1 3-game win streak away from having a 13-point cushion with less than half a season to go. Normally at this time of year, if teams are like 5 or 6 points out, it's like a damn near impossible mission. And that's also including points percentage wise. I think Columbus and Detroit are tied. So Detroit would also have to outpace Columbus while catching up to Boston. It's not.
Do they play Boston?
One more time.
Yeah, it's not enough.
They're actually 5-10 points percentage for Detroit as opposed to 5-11 for Columbus. I didn't even realize Columbus was there. I don't want to sit here and say the Red Wings have no chance. I think there is some, but I'm going to say there's some within the space of, for those interested in what it looks like. Like, it's not something that's gonna, I think you said it right, Brad. Don't instill the hope in you like this is something that you can reasonably expect to happen. If it does, it will be considered one of the better second half comebacks in the last, decade or so for playoff teams.
I think the next whatever number of games we just rattled off against those top teams is a couple of things. Fantastic measuring stick.
Yeah. To
see, really show where the Red Wings match up against the best teams in the league, which, I mean, you could probably look at the standings, figure that out. But it also maybe will paint the playoff picture a little better, because if you can beat those teams, the games where you're almost certainly not expecting yourselves to pull out wins, maybe that does change our outlook on it a little bit, because that's maybe the hardest part of their schedule. I would assume, without knowing all the games to the absolute end. But yeah, I think there's a couple factors that can come out of that 8 games.
Yeah.
So just to use math to put this in perspective, because I was curious, I might be off by
myself.
No. So right now the Bruins are playing at a 102-point pace. So that's roughly where they're expected to finish. For the Red Wings to get to 102 points with 33 games left, they have to play at a 129-point pace.
That's all right.
In 33 games. Not impossible. Like I said, it's happened before. But keep expectations realistic.
What I will say is, for those interested in it, and again, there is absolutely nothing wrong with hoping for this. Part of coming out of a rebuild is you have to start thinking of these things again. And I admitted to someone the other day, like, covering this team, but being invested in it. Obviously, we're fans. It's hard to kind of break away from the thought of, maximize draft picks and now start to gun for the playoffs? Because you're like, is it too soon? Is the team equipped? Can we do this sustainably? Does Yzerman have the defensive core that he wants in the pipeline for the future? Are they wasting an opportunity by not getting a top end pick, but like getting bumped out of the first round of the playoffs? All those things that anyone would be thinking about, big or small. But it's okay to start to hope for it because that's part of the game. And ultimately, what we want is for the Red Wings to make the playoffs and go on cup runs and bring the Stanley Cup back to Hockeytown. No one will be more excited. Well, a lot of you all are very excited. We'll all be equally excited if the Red Wings make the playoffs. No one's going to be disappointed in that. As an arbitrary benchmark, see where the Red Wings are. Let's pay attention and see where the Red Wings are, like Evan said, after this stretch of tough games. After the back-to-back Friday, Saturday in Florida, so Tampa Bay first and then at Florida, if they are any closer to Boston and they have separation between them and Columbus is behind them, then the idea of the Red Wings making the playoffs will be a whole lot less crazy. But it's going to be a tough test.
We're literally trying to figure out if they'll make the playoffs, and they've got maybe the hardest next 8-10 games that any team's going to have.
They have literally the hardest strength of schedule for the rest of the season in the entire NHL, and they have to play at a 129-point pace to match Boston's what they're projected for. Now, again, not impossible, and I'm hoping, I'm going to be cheering like I believe they can do it. I'm still going to be.
Really, for me, it's they needed to play more games against Boston at this point in the season. Like if there's only one game left against Boston, if there was 4, that changes things significantly.
And Columbus, that race is going to be there too.
Yes.
They've got a Saturday night game against them in April. I think it's at home.
Is it April 9th?
April 9th in Detroit, yeah. So that game might have a lot of serious playoff implications if all things go well.
Interesting. Well, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I first want to tell everyone that this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is proudly brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is a sponsor that gives hockey fans what we really need, even more excitement in the game. There's so many reasons why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. From ease of use in registration, deposits, and finding your best bet, and withdrawals are quick and easy. FanDuel pays your winnings back in as little as 24 hours. They always have great odds boosts and specials every day with some big super boosts each weekend. Now listen to this. FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win your first bet. No strings attached. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you get that grand back in site credit. What we want you to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started with that risk-free bet, and be sure to sign up with promo code WWP so they know the Winged Wheel podcast sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code WWP. You must be 21 and older and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, Iowa, Tennessee, Virginia, or Michigan. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, or Virginia, Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-270-7117 in Michigan. All right. So we talked about, the Red Wings and their playoff chances. And part of that is, what impact does Jakub Vrana have if and when he returns to his team? So he's basically going back to the specialist sometime mid-month, which is around now. So you can reasonably say within the next week or so, we'll have a little bit more information on Vrana. He's still wearing that non-contact jersey, which the baby blue non-contact jerseys, I'm like, I kind of want one of those. They're pretty slick.
Is it because you don't want anybody to touch you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm very much like, even before the pandemic, I was like, don't be near me, please. I hate malls. Actually, you know what I taught Mel with malls? She thought I was a psychopath for doing it. I go to malls with my headphones in. If I ever have to go shopping, like headphones in and just walk straight forward. No one bothers you. The person at like the...
What? Where have you been going that people bother you when you go to the mall?
Ryan is a social media influencer.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if I've ever been stopped by a stranger at the mall.
They don't offer you like the stuff at the mall when you walk past those booths.
That is the worst. And Catherine always never notices them. I don't know. That's like the first thing I notice.
Exactly.
Terrorists and the people who hand out those things. First thing I notice. Catherine just starts walking right towards them. I'm off.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact.
You're always on the lookout for danger then, eh?
Oh, yeah.
You're always like, if people broke in and started shooting this place, how would I save everyone? You're playing that fantasy.
I'm not saving
head?
everybody. I'm saving myself. I got the exits marked. Yeah.
The people at the mall with like the
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
if you have headphones and you just walk right past them.
I just walk right past them anyway.
I probably
stare them down as I walk by.
Don't talk to me.
I just do what I do. Look poor. Then they're like, he can't afford this.
Evan covers his Gucci bag. I don't know.
Yeah.
Walk around with one shoe. Nobody will bother you.
Well, just look poor. Jeez, Brad.
Evan doesn't know how.
Anyhow,
I'll take my outdoor Crocs, wear them to the mall.
I actually don't know how I railroaded us onto the mall. We were talking about Jakub Vrana returning. Right, the non-contact jerseys. So with any hope, let's say Vrana comes back. Let's say I don't want to say conservatively. Edmonton, March 15th. We have Vrana in a Red Wings jersey and he's on the ice. This got mentioned at the end of last episode in overtime, but it looks like there's maybe more discussion to be had here. Where does he come into the lineup first to start, and where does he slot into eventually?
Well, to start, probably on the third line to play a sheltered role and to kind of get eased back into it minutes-wise. If all goes well or continues to go well with the top six, he probably stays there. And then it gives, like I alluded to earlier, the Red Wings 3 legitimate scoring lines for the first time since roughly the mid-2000s.
My idea that I put forward, and a lot of people had, I actually made the mistake, is like, I said, this is what I think the lineup might be, or like just an idea for what it might be right when Vrana returns. And I should have stopped at the third line. And what I did was just put out whatever for the fourth line. And then everyone was, like, what about Giovanni Smith? What about Jamel Smith? You have Ernie and everyone on the, shut up, Brad. You have Ernie on the wrong way.
Witkowski.
And I was like, I really did this to myself. It's no one's fault but my own. I don't care who you put on the Red Wings fourth line. It doesn't matter. Evan, you're out. You just can't play center. We need to pick a wing and tell Ernie he's on the other one, and Rasmussen's your center. Congrats.
Perfect.
If you need to sub out, Abby can go in. And if that's just an abdicator or my dog Abby, I genuinely do not care. Anyhow, so a third line, and my idea was, what about a third line with Zadina and Veleno centering it? And that is potentially stupid in a couple ways, so I'll head those off. One, Ryan, Zadina just got a chance on the first line. He's just now getting his mojo back, potentially. Why would you pull him away from there? To which I say, well, the other solution is Vrana bumps him off the first line eventually, right? So why not pull them off together, tap into that chemistry that they had before that they displayed? I mean, Larkin was a big part of that, but still, and see what they can do with Joe Veleno. The second criticism is, hey, is Joe Veleno really ready to center that line? And I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure that he can.
I feel comfortable saying this because it's been a month or two since I've really ragged on him. Is Veleno ready to center a third line? No. Is he the best option the Red Wings have right now? Yes. So be it. Plus, him and Zadina, if that's where you're going, did have a lot of chemistry in Grand Rapids. So
yeah.
Meanwhile, that line has basically no physical element to it, but they can skate, have skill, and score. So they might score 3-4 goals a game and allow 2 or 3, but that's still a net positive.
The thing is, let's say you do that, and let's say that line goes reasonably well. And even if Veleno's not ready, like, hey, what better way to elevate your game than to play with someone like Jakub Vrana, right? Who can make something out of nothing. Vrana's not going to want to stick on the third line. He didn't leave Washington to come to Detroit to stay on that third line. So what's the longitude on this? How far out can you go with this kind of setup? Because the trade-off would be you putting Nemesnikov up on the first line with Larkin and Raymond.
Which worked.
Yeah, it wasn't the best iteration, but
yeah, no, out of the 3 iterations of that line that we've seen this year, it was the third best. But it was doable. They were still producing. The thing is, you can't get married to lines ever. Now, we always hated Blashill for how quickly he was ready to shuffle the lines, like seemingly every other game. But the reality of it is you ride what's hot until it isn't. And if, the Red Wings line of Larkin, Raymond, and Zadina goes 2 weeks, 5 games, 6 games, something like that, of nothing's happening here. This doesn't look right. All right. Bust out the blender, throw it in, bump Vrana up, move Zadina to the second line if that line's gone cold. Whatever. You do what you got to do. And if that doesn't work, all right, back in the blender.
Yep.
Like, I don't like shuffling lines up like every 3, 4, 5 games. But if problems are persisting, then yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If the top 6 is clicking like it is now for another, even close to clicking at what it is now for another 3, 4 weeks, Vrana's not sniffing that top 6. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't galaxy brain it. If Vrana can pop in with Nemesnikov and Rasmussen or Veleno or whoever, and all of a sudden that line starts contributing, because Vrana, one of his strengths is creating chances for himself. So you could have 3 potent lines, and even though Vrana's probably playing with a boat anchor at center, whoever that might be, he's also going to get way more favorable matchups.
Yeah.
You know, Larkin and Suter's line are going to be drawing, you know, the first and second defensive units. Vrana might get a handful of shifts out against the team's bottom pair. Vrana will do a lot of damage against shitty defensemen. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And yeah, I mean, as soon as anything goes south in that top 6, Vrana is going to jump right in. And I shouldn't even say if, when. That's the way hockey goes. These 2 lines are not going to stay hot for the whole season. And as soon as you get that, you know, 5-6 game cold streak, here's our quick fix. Plug Vrana in there, and all of a sudden, hey, more goals.
It's funny because I'm like, do you really? How much time will Vrana even have to be like to get warmed up? Like, let's say he just starts putting in goals and making plays at an unreal rate, and you realize he's ready to step back into the top 6. Like, he's forcing the issue. Like, how many games would he even need for that? And then I realized the schedule is so dense that even if he came in and missed the first 6 games in March and came in for the Oilers on the 15th, he would still have over a quarter of a season played before the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a bit of time. I liked what you said about the line blender, though. And I think it's fair to say now that, like, the meme, but like really the issue of like lines being shaken up far too quickly, that's gone.
Yeah, that has not happened at all this year. There's been a lot of juggling in the bottom 6, but that's mostly due to injury, and, you know, Mitchell Stevens getting hurt, and then Carter Rowney getting hurt, and then, you know, guys coming up and down, which if you juggle the 4th line every game, I honestly do not give a shit.
Again, Evan, you go get out there. I will go so far as to say the lineups and the configuration of the lines, like both the stability and the configuration, have been a strong suit of the coaching staff in Blashill this year.
At forward, yes.
Yeah. I mean, at defense, you're still very much working with what you
There's only so much you can do, but I'll say it's not been optimized this year, but there's only so much you can do.
It's like, if you had to put it on a number scale, it's like some nights it was a -4, and we think you could have made it a -2.8 instead.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. And another point I want to bring up from the end of last episode is we should be very careful to not elevate Vrana into this like mythical 60 goal scorer too soon.
This is a 30-30 guy. Like, remember that, guys. In Washington, Vrana was a 3rd liner. Now, everybody was saying, hey, he should be playing above the 3rd line. And the Red Wings put him on the 1st line, and it went very, very well. But that is a very small sample size. We are still dealing with a guy whose ceiling is probably 60, 70 points. I hope I get radioed for that. Not
Just
wrong.
that. Yeah, right? Like, that's something you'd love to be wrong about.
I'd love to be wrong, but that needs to be, like I was talking about with the playoffs, understand hopes versus expectation.
Yeah.
I hope Vrana pops off for 40 goals next year. My expectations is probably 20 to 25. Like,
yeah, it's one of those things where we're not saying it's impossible. You just need to start seeing those things before you can start discussing those things in earnest.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, it's happening with Zadina now, where a guy gets pumped up to a level that he's never hit before and will probably never hit, and then people are mad when they don't hit that level. Like, Zadina's draft profile elevated him to, you know, and how happy Red Wings fans were to unexpectedly get him. It inflated what he actually was, right? And
yeah,
so
he has underperformed expectations.
No, he has. But what I'm saying is, if he was viewed right now solely as a 6th overall pick and expected to be like a 25-25 guy, nobody's really that angry at what Zadina's done so far because he's been a career, like he's had those moments where he's flirted with like a half a point per game, 50-point pace before this cold streak this year. But guys were expecting him to be a 40-40 guy, which I don't know if he was ever going to be that. And now people are like, oh, this fucking 80-point guy's got 30 points. What? So it just makes it worse. So I don't want that to happen with Vrana, because if he does come back and play at a 50, 60-point pace and everybody goes, oh, thought he was going to be a point per game guy. And then they get mad at him and it's not his fault because of expectation. So remember, hope for the best. Keep your expectations realistic. And he's going to be coming off a major shoulder injury and shoulder surgery. Do you know how hard that is to come back from?
I'm just going to go back to something with Zadina. I've got to be honest here and admit, at some point, like when in his like stretch of games, I can't, if it was like 13 or 20 games, when he was scoring and producing at the rate he was, I was like, this could be a 40-goal guy. I'll be honest.
No, we all thought that. Like, I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it. I absolutely thought it. But then, yeah, like you go back and you read the draft reports. Nobody was saying 40-goal guy. They're like, oh yeah, this guy could be like, you know, a 30, 35 goal scorer, maybe hit 70, 80 points. And it's like, oh yeah, that's really good. That's great for a 6th overall pick. But yeah, it just happens when you inflate a guy to a level that he can't possibly meet. You're out.
Do that with Mark Stahl all the time.
Oh no, he exceeds every expectation, good and bad.
Mark Stahl's flawless. That's a lashing, actually, for implying that he's not. You don't get a pretzel anymore. Brad, congrats. You now get a pretzel.
Hell yeah.
I think Vrana, if I had to, stick my neck out, someone said, hey, don't be afraid to be wrong on the show. I think you need to.
Have you listened to the show?
Not a problem.
I'm going to go so far as to
Check
say, depending on, as long as he's not playing with like Rasmussen and Ernie for the entire like quarter of a season, I think Vrana will shake off the rust pretty quickly, but it is still best practice. Approach it like we did with Raymond and Seider. Say, hey, these are good players, but don't expect the world of them. You might get it. You very well might get it. And we have been from both of those guys, but just don't set that expectation and let yourself be pleasantly surprised. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with Vrana.
Yeah, just think of how happy we are that Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond have blown the doors off their expectations. If this is what we thought they'd be, this would be a lot less fun.
Yeah. Very quickly here, the Red Wings have been apparently linked to Jeff Petry.
Why? Oh, there we go.
The Montreal Canadiens are always, I don't know why. It's Habs fans are always linking Red Wings with trades. Like they're always kind of trying to match up with the Red Wings for trades. And this one might be true. I don't know. But Jeff Petry is having a pretty rough year in Montreal.
You don't say.
And he's got 3 years left at $6.25 million a year. And I think the biggest thing he's an Ann Arbor guy, so he's obviously always going to be linked with Detroit. All those players who are from Michigan or remotely linked to Michigan are always linked back to Detroit. But he's got 3 years left at 6.25. So
his dad pitched for the Tigers.
Yeah, I always forget that. The $6.25 million is too much for Jeff Petry. He's 34 years old,
which isn't old.
Can you imagine me?
Ancient.
Oh my God. Practically dust.
Yeah.
Sand is pouring out of the cracks in his face. He's got a limited no trade. He's got a no move clause. It's all like, it's not a good contract, believe it or not, coming out of Montreal.
You think he would take it, lift that or waive it to get out of Montreal?
To come home to Detroit.
Very much, yes.
Detroit's,
Ryan, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was being a podcast.
I appreciate that though.
Sorry.
We'll leave no stone unturned.
No, yeah, on this podcast. Detroit, better situation than Montreal, ? Tune in next time. It's actually funny to think about, though, because Detroit is actually, I think, on the like attractive end of the scale now for destinations for players.
They're teetering right on that edge.
They're the grocery stick.
If they come out next year and this year wasn't a fluke and it's like, hey, these guys are like almost there, then yeah, they're a destination again.
They're Andy Dalton right now, but next year, a couple of years, and they might be like a Herbert. A few years after that, they might even be like a Josh Allen. Hell yeah. That was for you, Brad.
Thank you. Football doesn't exist anymore.
No, yeah. Why? What's going on literally right now as we're recording?
Pain.
Yeah. So for this one for me, the rumor is Montreal is not interested in retaining salary because Detroit and or whatever, like Dallas, for example, would want him at $5 million. I just don't know how much I buy of this right now. It doesn't quite make sense for Detroit. He plays the right side, does he not?
Yeah, like it's the one position on Detroit where you can go top to bottom and go, they're good. They have their number 1 right D, their number 2 right D, and their number 3 right D, and none of them are old. Like, it makes no sense.
I could see it as like hey, you pull this contract off the books and you give us a little something for it.
Yeah.
But Montreal's in a rebuild.
Here's a Jeff Petry and a Christian Dvorak. He's having a bad year. We'll let you try to fix him. Like, that kind of thing, sure.
I'm not going to say it's impossible. I mean, Yzerman did go out and spend an asset on Nick Leddy, but at least Leddy plays the left side.
Yeah.
So this one to me is a little bit funny. I
think it's a lot of smoke.
Yeah. Montreal's got new management. They're going to have to do some pretty creative work to shave off the years and what's going to be a pretty painful upcoming little while for them based on their roster construction. You're going to see a lot of smoke billowing out of there.
It could be one of those things where, hey, Ken Hughes has talked to Steve Yzerman about Jeff Petry, where the conversation is Ken Hughes calling Steve Yzerman and just saying please for 10 minutes.
Yeah, the Bell Center is going to be looking like they're going to be electing a pope for the next few seasons.
Yeah.
I had that joke played out in my head, but the delivery was...
I knew what you were getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... I'm very much too far removed from my last meal right now. So that's a lot on the Red Wings and what's coming up for them. So we'll see where they end up. It's crazy that we're so far away from the trade deadline still.
I know. I keep thinking, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like next week, isn't it? What's that? We're still well over a month away? Oh. The condensed end of the season is so jarring to look at. You look at the February schedule, you're like, lots of days off, lots of rest, and March and April, like, get ready for the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
You piece of shit, you thought you were going to sleep?
You can sleep when you're dead, which coincidentally will be very soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we are actually, before overtime, going to jump into our FanDuel sponsored segment where we take a look at some betting odds surrounding the world of NHL hockey, anything from games to futures. And something that I want to point out first is the current player futures, specifically related to the Calder Trophy. So the betting favorite for the Calder Trophy right now is Trevor Zegras. He's at a plus 195.
Don't need to know the odds. Smash the button on Mo Sider right now.
Lucas Raymond is still coming in second at plus 250.
Yep.
And I think those two being close is very fair.
Yeah.
And if I had to put money, let's say Moritz Seider didn't exist. I know, not a nice thing to say out loud, but let's just for the sake of the hypothetical. If I had to put betting money down, I actually would take Zegras. Not that he's necessarily who I think should win. I just think would win in a vote at this moment. Moritz Seider's coming in at a third place, that's plus 550. So Zegras plus 195, Lucas Raymond plus 250, Moritz Seider at plus 550 right now. I know
this is the best bet we've had on this segment since it was born.
Yeah.
He's had longer odds to start the year, of course. Like, and I know a lot of our listeners showed us, like, they have some bets holding on Seider and Raymond that could pay out huge. But even right now, a plus 550 on Moritz Seider, like, the whole league is coming around on him. He's not quiet, right? Like, Seider does not have, like, he is showing up on every major outlet, online, on TV, whatever. Like, his highlights are making it. Yeah, sure, the show is around Trevor Zegras and the cool stuff he does. Like, he's the only guy pulling off the Michigan, or he had that sweet shootout goal in the All-Star game, but he's not the only one doing this stuff, and Seider arguably is doing more in game right now.
No offense, the All-Star game isn't during a game, so that should be wiped from everyone's memory.
It should be wiped.
It won't be.
It'll keep Zegras in the public conscious.
You know what Moritz Seider was doing while Trevor Zegras was playing a game for fun? He was saving animals from burning fires, and nobody talks about that.
Hey, Moritz, thank you for loaning me your Lamborghini. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
He was studying the blade. Yeah. Anything can happen. We're still in the 40s for the amount of games played. Like, we still have a lot of hockey left we just talked about. and it's a lot of dense hockey, and that's going to wear players down. And Moritz Seider plays a lot of minutes. I'm not saying he's a lock. Trevor Zegras can go on an unreal tear. Lucas Raymond can come back into the fray.
Mo Seider is the number one defenseman on a team that's about to run through the Thunderdome over the next 8 games, to steal your phrase there. So, yeah, he's probably not going to have the greatest time in the world over the next 3 weeks.
And it's not his fault. It's because he's going to be like, it's artillery straight at him and his whoever's defensive partner is that game.
If he treads water over the next 8 games, don't wait till the end of the season just to hand him the Calder.
And like tease the Hart as well.
Yeah. And the James Norris Memorial, we mean Calder Trophy.
No, I'm just saying, I think Moritz Seider right there at plus 550 is excellent.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even trying to be a homer. If you want to get away from Detroit, if you're saying, hey, like, I want another long odd, Anton Lundell at plus 750 is not bad either.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Because he's a very, very good player, and he took a little.
That's why I drafted him 3 times in our mock draft.
Yeah. He's, man, that could turn out to be a phenomenal pick where Florida got him in that draft.
It already has.
It already has, but, you know, you could look at that and say, how did so many people pass over Lundell? Where did he go? 11, 12?
11.
He went to Florida, I think.
Shut up, man. The worst. Cale Makar is still the betting favorite for the Norris, and Shesterkin is still leading the Vezina, plus 200. Vasilevsky a little ways behind at plus 550. And UC Saros at 800.
That's still my bet.
Yeah, you know what?
I don't think Saros is going to win. I think Shesterkin's going to win, but at plus 800 for the season Saros is having, he doesn't need to do a whole hell of a lot more to win. Like, he's right there.
Yeah. The Hart Trophy to me is such an interesting one. I have no idea which way this is going to go.
If this award was awarded properly, it would be Connor McDavid until he retires, but it's not. So that does make things a lot more interesting.
And he is the betting favorite, plus 195, but Ovi's plus 350, Draisaitl's plus 650, Huberdeau's plus 650, Matthews is coming in at 1,500, and McKinnon at 2,900.
Think that was on purpose?
Yeah.
Connor McDavid is tied in goals with Tyler Bertuzzi, so that's not...
what's Tyler Bertuzzi's odds? What's Dylan Larkin's odds?
There's no odds offered on Bertuzzi, Larkin.
What about Mo Seider?
Not for Hart.
There's the bet.
No, there's nothing on him for Hart Trophy.
You can't write him in at like...
Well, you might be able to, but there's nothing I can see right here on the sheet. The longest odd I see is Alex DeBrincat at plus 12,000. Actually, a lot of guys are at plus 12,000. But I wouldn't even know where to go with the Hart Trophy.
Throw a dart. This is where you can really get fun with the odds, because I think it's a little more wide open than people give it credit for. Matthews at plus whatever 4-digit number that was. That might not be a bad bet. He's having a quietly strong season given that he plays in Toronto.
Yeah. All right, some team futures. Oh, yeah, we're not doing playoffs right now. So, okay, we'll get into some odds for Red Wings playoffs. Let's say after that arbitrary cutoff date, but that's all for now. So for those of you looking at a potential Moritz Seider value bet, there's one right there. Thank you to the FanDuel Sportsbook for sponsoring that segment.
What are his odds on the Norris?
And we'll get back to that. We're going to jump into overtime, which is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/Winged Podcast. If you want to help support the show, they truly are what make the show happen, and why we're able to say things like a happy 7-year Winged Wheel Podcast Winged Wheel Podcast anniversary. Max $1 million says, not a question, but some constructive criticism. Last episode should have been called Sensational Cider Man. You're absolutely right. And I'm an idiot for not thinking of it.
The amazing cider man.
Yeah, the alliteration was about as far as I went. I couldn't think of anything else. Matthew M. Rice says...
This episode can be... what one is it now? We'd be on Cider Man 2, Far From Home.
Workshop that a little bit.
Do they got a road trip coming up?
I don't know. Yeah.
Figure it out. We'll try and line that up with that.
Matthew M. Rice says, a trade deadline thought. Vlad seems to like being back in Detroit, and he's carved a nice role with the team, exceeding expectations. Being that he's a UFA this offseason, wouldn't it be a no-brainer to give him a chance at a cup run with a contender and re-sign him this offseason? Give Stevie and company another mid-round pick or two to swing for some talent, while hopefully retaining him 6 months down the road.
Yes, but that depends a lot on the player, because even if that's what the team wants to do, if you trade a player, sometimes they get really upset about it and they're like, screw you, I'm not coming back. Some guys are like, no, I don't want to go. I don't care about the cup run. I want to stay here. Don't trade me. And then if you trade him, he's like, again, same reason. Now he's mad. I'm not coming back. If you talk to him ahead of time, hey, we're going to trade you to Colorado. Go get your cup. We'll be waiting here in July. And if Vlad goes, that sounds like a great idea, you do it. But those so very rarely happen.
It's rare, but if I had to pick a player type to do it, Nemesnikov would be there. And he'd understand too. He's a journeyman. He wouldn't, I don't think he'd have hard feelings about it.
But the fact that he is a journeyman, he could just be sitting there going, I'm sick of moving.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm done with this.
Not everybody cares about winning.
I think he does.
I think to be in the NHL, you do to some degree.
I mean, being a professional athlete, yeah. But at some point, you're just like, I'm good. Like Connor McDavid.
Yeah, very obvious. He's just cool with what he's got, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Terry. So as user Terry, maybe doesn't come by any other name, reminds us, today's the 2-year anniversary of the Terry dupe from Overtime. Happy 2-year Terry-versary, since the most memorable moment in podcast history. The podcast lines up perfectly to the day you'll love to see it. Also, why did the coward Brad Crisco not turn up to the fight he arranged?
I was in COVID protocol. I couldn't fly.
Oh, that's true, yeah. This comment proudly brought to you by the Stay Fresh Cheese Bags, official cheese bag of Mo Cider, a.k.a. #German Lidstrom.
Yeah, when I got my quarantine cleared up, I was allowed out of the house yesterday morning.
Lord Blashill, Master Commander of the Tank Brigade, said, who had the prettier goal, Cider or Zadina? It's got to be Cider's, I think.
Yeah, that was a dart.
Zadina's was more emotional because of the context, but Cider's, I think, was objectively a bit prettier. Winged Wheels and Steering Wheels says, what prices are we looking at for the next Cider and Raymond contracts?
High. Unless they go bridge, which
I do not do that with them.
No, I do not either. You get them to 8-year contracts immediately, but you're looking probably, even now.
You hear that? It's the Brinks truck backing up.
Yeah, because you can't sign them to an extension until after next season. If you sign them to 8 years and they repeat their seasons that they're having now, that number's probably pretty close to 10.
Someone asked, like, hey, would you sign them at 8x7 like right now, or 8x8 right now? And they said that pretty early in the year. I said, I don't know about that. And I just can't fathom how stupid I was to even hesitate. But yeah, I don't bridge really.
Just look at everybody else who's signed lately. Didn't Cale Makar get a big ticket?
He got just under 10 mil.
Who else? I don't know. My brain's potato.
Signing them based on the current cap, which is artificially low, and while you have all this cap space, which Detroit has, it's probably your best situation to maximize their years. These guys are good now. Think of how good they're going to be through, their age 23, 24, 25 years, which is like the peak of their athletic output. 26, 27, 28 still brings you, the peak of actual production. To get them into that range, whatever you got to pay now, it's going to pay off in the future. I mean, shit, they're probably going to be. This conversation is almost moot by the time they're able to sign these things.
Yeah, the AAV, whatever it is, and by the time that contract's coming to completion, will be not a lot.
The only thing that I think could make this a bit more friendly to the Red Wings is that they have a GM who's notorious for getting guys in at value. So,
yeah, I think those contracts are in at value.
Yeah. Yzerman doesn't have the Florida State tax thing to lean on anymore, though, unfortunately. Okay, let's take another question here. Ben Height says, keep one, trade one, and cut one. Hronek, Osterley, Lindstrom. Okay, I cut Osterley.
Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward.
Want to know a hot take?
You're going to trade Hronek because he's got a higher trade value?
Yeah.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I definitely think Hronek's the better player.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
But the way he's been playing lately, I think Lindstrom can at least adequately replace him, but you would get a much bigger return in a trade for Hronek.
I'm not advocating necessarily to trade Hronek. And
you don't need to specify that in every hypothetical. That's we've
been hurt before.
We're basically playing fuck, marry, kill right now, Ryan. You don't need to take it too literally.
But yeah, I mean, you look at what Rasmus Ristolainen got last year.
And he's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a good hockey player.
In this hypothetical, yeah, I think I'd do that. Ben Fincham says, greeting Dubs. I was at the game yesterday for my 6-year-old's first Wings game. Oh, that's always a good one. Stuffed llama in tow. She didn't understand the woos either. Yeah, we don't.
Nobody does.
Among the obvious takes others had, Zadina's goal being badass for one, I was thinking about what trade value, if any, Greiss carries. Maybe Kenny calls about a set of tires. Dare I say Danny DeKaiser played decent as well. Shout out to the fellow patron I met in section 232. Oh, that's cool. Thank you, Ben, and fellow patron, for your support. What trade value does Greiss carry?
Mid-round pick.
I would honestly take anything up to like a 5th. 6 for Greiss. Oh, he's expiring. Take whatever for Greiss.
Yeah, literally. Calvin Pickard played well in his brief showing.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, you take whatever you can get. But yeah, I bet you Greiss gets you a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th.
If Ken Holland's solution at net is Thomas Greiss, I'll cry laughing.
Well, his solution was going to be Martin Jones, apparently. It was one of the ones he made an offer on. It was Martin Jones, Jonas Korpisalo, who's having a bad year. And then I guess now they're kicking tires on Ville Husso, who is unproven, pending UFA, but admittedly having a very good year.
Oh, you want Thomas Greiss, Kenny. And last note here, and this is something that I actually wanted to mention on this pod. It's from Misconduct Racing. It says, happy for Trevor Thompson. I think he did a great job on seemingly very short notice and put more of his personality into his calls as the game went on. Yeah, so Ken was under the weather, and Trevor Thompson stepped in for play-by-play for a National Hockey League game, which cannot be easy. And I think especially as the game went on, like, the goal calls were fantastic. And for someone who came in and had to cover, like, Trev did a great job.
He did better than some national broadcasts we've watched this year.
Yeah.
Significantly better.
So, yeah, shout out to Trev and the Bally team for putting that together. But no, that was cool. His, like, I was watching the Zadina goal call. I'm like, that was really good.
Seems like a good dude, too.
Oh, yeah, Trev's a great guy.
I'll always remember him for keep away with Pavel Datsyuk.
That's always what I think about when I think of Trevor Thompson is that keep away video. And like, Trevor's a good hockey player.
Yeah, he could hold his own. And Pavel Datsyuk made him look like a toddler.
Pavel Datsyuk made him look like me on the ice.
Yeah. Honestly.
Like, as of right now. Oh, I tried stretching the other day. That was a mistake.
Yeah, I try to put my socks on too every day.
I've taken to doing like core and stretching classes on my off days. And I was swearing at my TV. I like casted the TV. I was swearing at the person on my TV. She was leading it, and it was like a beginner level, like easiest difficulty. And she was like, in just 20 more seconds. I'm like, a few 20 more seconds.
I'm going to stretch my core as soon as we're done this.
Fill your stomach?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, why don't we wrap up? Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for the last 7 years. Apologies, or you're welcome for the lack of pomp and circumstance for that this episode. But like I said, some exciting stuff coming up in the coming days, so stay tuned. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the FanDuel Sportsbook, and our name-level supporters on Patreon. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Kyle Kragitz, Nick Perks, Brett Bailey, Terry Driver of the number 69, Cryin' Ryan, Hannah Banana Slamma Jamathong, Taylor Tadgel, Matthew M. Rice, B. Diz, Carl Brutana Nanoluski, Chimmy, Citizen High Five, CJ Sully, Craig Kibble, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Give Blood, Fight Probert, Greach, Han Ali, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Justin and the Angry Mob, Kaylin Wood, King Tone, Kyle Hashman, Licking Windows for Fun, Matt McKay, R.A., Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Stay Fresh Cheese Bags, your friendly neighborhood window peeper, Zach Spring, Yves Bartels again, Alex Blackmore, Andrew Bohan, Sam Bankson, Adam I Wish I Could Finish Like Ernie, Antonio Gracias, Babe Landeskog, Ben Barron, Brad's Dad Moan, Connor Leightonen, Dave W., Eric Sinkowski, Evans Bingo Card. I'm so blazed, dude. I don't know what to put here. James Laporte, Jeremiah Dobo, Jeremy Brocker, John Evans, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Logan Stull, Matt Keeler, Matt S., Max $1 million. My 90-year-old grandmother is now a name-level sponsor, E. Norma Stitz. Thank you, Granny Norma. Revi DeLuca, Terry Actual, Trevor Bevavar, Zach Handyside, and Zach McCann, driving range superstar. Thank you, Granny Norma. Appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.